Hi everyone. Have you ever wondered who was stronger, Rome or Carthage? The ultimate clash, the most powerful army on land versus the unbeatable navy at sea. Right from the start, sparks were flying. But honestly, it's hard to say who was truly stronger. Rome commanded the mightiest ground forces, while Carthage ruled the seas with their invincible fleet. These two great powers clashed over control of the Mediterranean in a brutal conflict that lasted more than 100 years, known as the Punic Wars. Over 100 years of war, and out of that long struggle, a truly extraordinary general would rise, the legendary Hannibal Barca, a tactical genius who defeated the Roman armies again and again. But wait, wasn't Rome supposed to be unstoppable? How did Hannibal manage to beat them? And why did Rome and Carthage go to war in the first place? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore together. Welcome to the beginning of the Hannibal War Chronicles. Let's start with the roots of the conflict between Rome and Carthage. This is Hannibal War Chronicles. Episode 1, Rome versus Carthage, the outbreak of war. To truly understand the Hannibal War Chronicles, first we need to grasp the deep-rooted rivalry between Rome and Carthage. This wasn't just a war. It was a long-term power struggle for domination over the Mediterranean. Rome and Carthage, two great powers. Rome, the war machine with the strongest army on land. So what made Rome so strong? Rome was a land-based power, and their infantry was unmatched. The strength of their foot soldiers defined them. Wait, what does it mean to have strong infantry? Well, at the time, Roman citizens were practically a warrior race. By winning wars, they would seize land and expand their nation. First and foremost, Rome was famous for its invincible army. Their infantry was among the best trained and most disciplined in the world, dominating battlefields everywhere. In fact, in Rome, fighting wars was practically considered a civic duty. It was normal for Roman citizens to pick up weapons and fight. And their politics were unique too. Rome was a republic, governed by the Senate and 2 elected consuls. Even while constantly fighting wars, they managed to maintain a strong political system. Plus, Rome kept expanding its network of allied cities, eventually controlling the entire Italian peninsula. In this way, Rome grew stronger and stronger, turning warfare itself into a way of life. A country built on endless warfare. Exactly. For Rome, war wasn't just survival. It was an economic engine. They fought, they conquered, and they grew stronger with every victory. Carthage, the maritime empire of trade. And what about Carthage? Carthage was a maritime power, and their main strength was in trade. Trade? So they didn't fight wars? Oh, they fought wars too. But unlike Rome, Carthage treated war as something that could be solved with money. If Rome ruled the land, then Carthage ruled the seas. They boasted the strongest navy in the Mediterranean. Their ships dominated the trade routes, and their economy flourished. Thanks to this, Carthage became incredibly wealthy through commerce. And unlike Rome, it wasn't kings who held power. It was aristocrats and merchants. Now here's a critical difference between Rome and Carthage: their military. In Rome, citizens fought as soldiers, but in Carthage, they outsourced their wars. Carthage hired foreign soldiers, mercenaries, to fight for them. That was the Carthaginian way of warfare.
Wait, they didn't fight their own battles?
Exactly. Carthage paid mercenaries from abroad to form their armies. Such a huge contrast compared to Rome, right? The strongest army on land and the strongest navy at sea. It was inevitable they'd clash someday. But why would a land power and a sea power even go to war? 2. Rome versus Carthage, the causes of conflict. The biggest cause, the struggle for dominance over the Mediterranean. Both Rome and Carthage were powerful states, expanding their influence across the Mediterranean. And when two great powers grow too big, sooner or later, they're bound to collide. Exactly, the real flashpoint was over who would control the most important strategic points in the region. The fight for Sicily, cause of the First Punic War. Was Sicily really that important? Absolutely. Sicily was a crucial strategic hub located right between Rome and Carthage. What did Sicily mean to Rome? For Rome, Sicily was like a protective shield, the front line defending Italy itself. So, if they lost it, Carthage could use Sicily as a springboard to invade the Italian mainland. That's why Rome absolutely couldn't afford to lose control over Sicily. And what about Carthage? For Carthage, Sicily was a key node in their vast trade network. So they needed it to protect their trade routes across the Mediterranean. Exactly. If Rome meddled in Sicily, Carthage's entire trading empire could be threatened. And so, tension between the two powers escalated. Both Rome and Carthage saw Sicily as absolutely vital. Neither side could back down, and so the conflict exploded into war. Thus began the First Punic War, the war for Sicily. 3. The First Punic War begins. At last, the First Punic War between Rome and Carthage begins. Finally, the big showdown. But what exactly were they fighting over? In simple terms, it was all about controlling Sicily. Again with Sicily? Yes, again. Let's dive into the events of the First Punic War. What was the First Punic War? 264-241 BC? The First Punic War was a conflict between Rome and Carthage over control of Sicily. But wait, wasn't Rome strong on land and Carthage strong at sea? Exactly. That's why the real key to this war was how Rome adapted to naval combat. I see. Tell me how the war unfolded. The course of the First Punic War, Rome and Carthage finally clash. The First Punic War started in 264 BC, but at first it was just a small-scale conflict. The spark of war, 264 BC. Wait, it didn't start as full-blown war right away? Right. It all began with a small city on Sicily called Messina. Messina? Was it really that important? Yes. When Rome took control of Messina, Carthage and Syracuse reacted furiously. Suddenly, it became Rome versus the Carthage-Syracuse alliance. Whoa, it escalated fast. Neither Rome nor Carthage could afford to back down over Sicily. And just like that, a small skirmish turned into a full-scale war. Land battles, 264 to 260 BC. But Rome was unbeatable on land, right? Exactly. The Roman legions captured key strongholds across Sicily, securing victory after victory. No surprise there, Rome was the master of land warfare. But Carthage still had the strongest navy. Wait, did Rome even have a navy? Rome builds a navy. Actually, they didn't. At least not at first. What? They were fighting naval battles without a navy? Rome captured Carthaginian warships and reverse-engineered them. They copied the design? Exactly. Rome then mass-produced their own warships called quinqueremes. Incredible. Rome adapted so fast. Battle of Mylae, 260 BC. Rome's new strategy truly shined at the Battle of Mylae. What happened there? Rome used a new invention, the corvus, a boarding bridge, to latch onto enemy ships. Wait, they fought naval battles? Like land battles? Exactly. Using the corvus, Rome scored its first ever naval victory. Amazing. Rome was unstoppable. Battle of Ecnomus, 256 BC. But the next battle would be one of the largest naval battles in history. How massive are we talking? Rome deployed 330 ships with around 140,000 men, while Carthage fielded 350 ships with about 150,000 men. That's huge. Once again, Rome's Corvus tactics won the day, crushing Carthage's fleet. Rome was too strong. Rome invades Africa, 255 BC. After this victory, Rome launched an invasion of Carthage's homeland, North Africa. Finally, the end of the war, but Carthage fiercely counterattacked, defeating the Romans. What? Rome actually lost? To make matters worse, a massive storm destroyed the Roman fleet. Thousands of soldiers perished at sea. No way. What a disaster. The final battle, Battle of the Aegates Islands, 241 BC. But Rome rebuilt a new fleet and struck back. Finally, it's over. Rome crushed Carthage's fleet at the Battle of the Aegates Islands. Thus, Rome secured control of Sicily. Results of the First Punic War, 241 BC. Rome wins. Carthage pays a massive war indemnity and surrenders Sicily. Rome gains its first overseas province. Carthage really lost big time, but Carthage wasn't finished yet. Wait, they're still going to fight? Yes, and next time, it would be Hannibal who would lead the charge. Now let's dive into the birth of Rome's greatest enemy, Hannibal Barca, and the legendary achievements of his father, Hamilcar Barca. The birth of Hannibal, but first his father. Finally, Hannibal's story begins. But first, was his father really such a big deal? Absolutely. In fact, Hannibal's father, Hamilcar Barca, was the man who laid the foundation for Carthage's comeback. Sounds important. Tell me more. Hamilcar Barca, the hero of Carthage. First, let's talk about Hamilcar Barca. Who was Hamilcar Barca? A brilliant Carthaginian general. He fought fiercely in the First Punic War, 264 to 241 BC, but ultimately Carthage was defeated. After the loss, he led an expedition to Spain, Iberia, to rebuild Carthage's strength. There, he established a powerful new Carthaginian base. Wait, didn't Carthage lose the First Punic War? They did. Rome defeated Carthage, forcing them to pay huge war reparations and surrender Sicily. That's a massive setback. It was, but Hamilcar refused to give up. He set out for Spain to rebuild Carthage's power. Hamilcar's Spanish campaign from 237 BC. Hamilcar landed in Spain. He fought local tribes and expanded Carthaginian control. He founded Carthago Nova, New Carthage, as a major base. He secured rich silver mines to fund and strengthen his army. So Carthage was regaining its strength in Spain. Exactly. Hamilcar's plan was simple. Use Spain's wealth to prepare for another war against Rome. The birth of Hannibal, around 247 BC, and here enters Hannibal Barca, son of Hamilcar. Born as the eldest son of Hamilcar, raised with military training from a young age, accompanied his father during campaigns in Spain. Here he is, the legendary Hannibal. But Hannibal wasn't just another general's son. There was one event that would forever shape his destiny. Hannibal's oath of vengeance. Hamilcar made young Hannibal swear an oath to be an eternal enemy of Rome. Hannibal, Rome is our enemy. You carry the future of Carthage. Swear to the gods. Swear to fight Rome for the rest of your life. I swear, I will destroy Rome. This oath of vengeance would drive Hannibal toward his destiny, leading to one of the most epic clashes in history. The death of Hamilcar. 229 BC and Hannibal's fate. Hamilcar's Spanish campaign was going strong, but then tragedy struck. While fighting in Spain, Hamilcar was killed in battle in 229 BC. No way. He was so close to rebuilding Carthage. After Hamilcar's death, his son-in-law, Hasdrubal, took command of the Carthaginian forces. Wait, so Carthage still had leadership? Sadly, Hasdrubal was later assassinated as well. What? Then who would lead Carthage? That's when fate intervened. The young Hannibal, the boy who swore vengeance against Rome, rose to become the new commander-in-chief of Carthage's army. Finally, the legend steps onto the stage. The boy who vowed revenge would soon become Rome's greatest nightmare. The Age of Hannibal begins. Exactly, and from here the real war between Rome and Hannibal would begin. At last, Hannibal had risen as the leader of Carthage's army. This can only mean one thing: a massive war with Rome is now inevitable. Exactly. This is where Hannibal's legendary story truly begins. If I could reincarnate as Hannibal, I'd want to start from right here and do it all over again. Oh? Which moment would you choose to start from? I think I'd want to take over the house of Barca, right at the moment Hannibal inherits it. Then I'd spend all my time preparing to build the ultimate army to defeat Rome. I see. The key to victory would definitely lie in how you prepare for that first clash with Rome. Exactly. Victory or defeat hinges on the preparations starting now.
So next time, Hannibal's epic campaign finally begins.
The legendary crossing of the Alps. The first clash with the Roman army. How will Hannibal strike fear into the heart of Rome? Stay tuned.